Hi everyone, Catherine here from Ink Finger Cat. Back with another Christmas in July. We are nearly there. We are nearly there, folks. And this time I'm back with a sketch, and I decided to do a DL card and do a tag on top of the card. Every month I do a tag for UK Stampers Forum. I haven't done one this month because I've been very busy with Christmas in July. But that was what was going through my mind, and I thought, why not do a sketch with a tag on it? I know I'm not submitting it to UK Stampers Forum, but there you go. At least I've done a tag. So there's my sketch. You can see it top left. I ended up making 2 cards. I used cream cardstock just to change it up, not use cream for a little while. In fact, I don't think I've used cream at all in this year's Christmas in July. No, don't recall doing one. So I make my DL cards, as in these long tall cards, by using a sheet of A4. I score it at around about 10.5 centimetres, and that gives me my card blank, and it leaves me a panel left over like this one. Obviously I've got 2 of them, and I'm just making them the same size, and that's what I make my tag from. And I make my tag by cutting the end off and then putting the little triangle that's been cut off over the side to try and match them up. I'm never bothered if they're not 100% accurate, it's fine. I then sort of marked the halfway mark to understand where I was going to punch my hole for the tag end and use my crocodile. So the first one is a little bit more in depth in terms of there's inking, there's stamping, there's colouring, there's embossing. The second one's a bit more simple. And that's because I wanted to show, because I had 2 ideas in my head, if I'm perfectly honest. That sort of area that I've sort of shaded in, at first I thought ink blending, and then secondly I thought paper, pattern paper. So I thought I'd do both. So I kept it quite simple in terms of the ink blending, and I just used my old olive. I then inked around the edges. I did a bit of splattering with water and then mopping it up so it's got a bit of a relief, what's it called, like a bleached out look. To be honest, because of what I then did, I'm not sure that you can see that much on the final card, but there you go. I decided to stamp at this point in early espresso, and it came out a lot more bold than I suppose I was expecting, and I was a bit like, oh, not sure what to do with that. And originally I was going to do my messy watercolouring, but then I realised that the ink would blend with the green underneath and it'd probably look a muddy mess. So you'd have the early espresso, which is a dye-based ink, so that's going to react with water. You'd have the old olive, water-based ink, a dye-based ink, which is going to react with the water. When you add the red on top, it's just going to be a big old muddy mess. So instead, got my alcohol markers out. These are the 2 cherry cobbler ones from Stampin' Up. And I just coloured the red parts of the poinsettia. I did choose 2 different colours, so it's slightly lighter in the middle and it's slightly darker on the outside. Total waste of time, didn't need to bother because of what I then do. Now, those who have watched videos of mine before for quite some time know I like to do this particular technique, specifically with florals, and normally when I watercolour. Never done it with the embossing powder and alcohol inks before. Sorry, just to say that was also really sped up. I sped that up ×8 because this was a long video otherwise. But what I do is I leave my stamp in my stamp platform, and then I can re-stamp directly over the top with my Versamark, and look what happens. You can emboss directly over the line out that was originally there, and it looks amazing. As I say, I've never done it over the alcohol markers, but it works really well. But what you don't get is necessarily, because I'd sort of like chosen a dark and light of the same colour, you don't really get the colour variation. I think you would have to choose much more different colours for you to be able to see colour variation on this particular stamp, because it is quite a bold stamp. The line art is quite bold on it. So, love that. I went round the edge of the tag as well with the gold embossing, and yeah, super happy with it. Right, I picked up this Mossy Meadow cardstock, just happened to have it on the side of the desk, and I thought, right, that'll make my panel that goes across the middle. And then for my sentiment, I'm choosing from that stamp set, and I should have done 2 of these because I do end up using the same one in the second one. And you know me, if you do 2 things at the same time, it's going to be quicker. Never mind. I then grabbed that scrap of foiled cardstock. That's like a piece of scrap that I've added the negative of the foil to, using a solid press plate, a solid glimmer plate. I've just got a little scrap of it and I thought, well, I'm going to use it, but it looked a bit too white, so I went over it with the green ink, and that just, you know, just subtly changed the colour of it to a green. I decided to matte and layer that so with a much finer matte, and then add my sentiment on the top. Added that to the panel. Job's a good one. Now I just need some ribbon or something to do the bow. So I decided to choose some twine. Apologies, I disappeared off camera for a little bit there. There were some very loud noises. There's some gardeners at the flats opposite our house, and they were doing something very noisy. It's not as noisy now, so I hope you can't hear it, but they are still doing lawn mowing and strimming and all sorts of stuff. I used some children's fun foam just to pop this tag up because I wanted some dimension, and with it being quite a large surface area, I didn't want to do all the little adhesive foam tabs. I mean, you could, but I couldn't be bothered. But I thought that brown wax thread worked nicely. Right, tag number 2. Tag number 2, I went and chose some pattern paper. Now this is a pattern paper that I think came from a card magazine, I'm pretty sure. Might even be the one that's actually in the box, but for some reason this has been separated off. And I just had this little piece of the pattern paper, perfect for me being able to do the 2 ends. Now, I wanted it to be flat, and so I just used Pritt Stick. Just thought it was easier, and it's less liquid than if you use proper wet glue. It tends to dry a lot quicker. And because it's quite a fine paper as well, I didn't really want it to warp too much, so hence I used Pritt Stick. And that's my 2 pieces down. You saw I did a torn edge because I just want it to look a little bit rough. And then I thought, what shall I use as my focal image? And I thought, well, why not use the pattern paper that you've got left? And there was some really fun, you can tell I've sped this up really fast, but yeah, there was some pieces of the foliage that were still there, and I thought, just use those, they're gonna work. So yeah, this is me fussy cutting out the few bits and pieces left from that pattern paper. So this is a real big lesson to everybody. Please do use your pattern paper for more than just a layer. Do rip it, cut bits out of it. It's really good fun. So I decided that that Mossy Meadow would still work with it as a panel. So I've got that as a panel. I've got the same sentiment going on that I again heat emboss in the gold, trim it down so that it's just a little bit smaller. And that I'm going to use as the sort of banner that will then go, if I put some glue on it, it just picks up all of those lovely little bits of foliage. They don't stick particularly well in some cases. I did add just this little scrap of cardstock behind in order to just layer it up a bit. Noticed I'd lost a holly leaf, so added that back in, and then just stuck it to my panel. Dead simple. Now, I decided it just needed a little bit of outline, and I didn't want to go around the whole thing with ink. So instead, I just, where the cream is, I have just added in a really sketchy sort of like line using my brown pen. It's not fancy, it's quite sort of whimsical, I suppose is the best word. Oh, my little tape runner ran out of tape. Good news is, dead easy to replace them, although I didn't do a brilliant job of it. I did sort of like try to put it on backwards several times. But yeah, popped my, and why do I use tape and wet glue? The wet glue gives you wriggle room. The tape makes sure it definitely secure. That's why. And I used exactly the same brown twine wax thread thing in order to finish off the tag. And that is my 2 cards done. Super happy with them. Really good sketch. can use that for loads of different things. I'm contemplating doing a birthday card actually, using the same sketch, so we'll see if that gets round to doing it. I've still got some more Christmas in July to come, so please do subscribe to see more. Please like if you enjoyed it. Tell me which one you preferred. I'd love to know in the comments below. If you're interested in joining our Facebook group, I'll leave the address for that, the link for that in the description box below. I'd love to see you over there and love to see what you've been making, so please do share. But for now, thank you so much for watching. It's really appreciated when people watch my videos. Until next time, bye.